All right, 4050 family, what is up? What is up? We're excited to get into this with y'all today. You happen to notice on screen that you can't not notice it. My man Quest, he's got on the Playa Del Carmen shirt.
Playa
He's
Del
got the hat.
Carmen.
Yeah, he's got the hat
Shouts
looking
out to
kosher there,
Playa.
right?
Shouts out to Playa.
I love it. So we're going to get into that in a second for sure. But several episodes ago, in part one of our Passport Bros series, we asked for y'all's opinion about the Passport Bros phenomenon. We wanted to know your reasons about why you believe Black men over 40 are going abroad to date and even sometimes to live. And y'all showed up. Tons and tons of comments
Yeah.
came running in. And all honesty, we read every single one of those for sure. And they were really riveting. So tonight, before we get into our main conversation, we're going to answer you all. So we chose 5 questions / observations from our comment section for the Passport Bros Part 1 episode. And we're going to read them directly to y'all before we answer them because some of you all mentioned some things that definitely needed to be said out loud. Okay. All right. So jumping in. Here we go. So question one. One of our commenters named at TW4943 dropped this in our comments. He said, and it wound up becoming the most liked comment that we've ever actually had on this channel, which is a nice feat. What he said was, quote, "I'm 45, single by choice, Black, 6 foot, no children, credit over 825. I work out 4 times a week and make well over 270K a year. I've been living my absolute best life in Mauritius, Bali, Thailand, and Dubai. Life couldn't be better." All right, end
Good
quote. So
Lord.
now,
I'm sorry. Can we just give this superhuman some big ups? Blah, 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 blah. 21 gun salute. I'm up here like the statistics can't be any better. Like, who is this cat, man?
Yeah, you gotta like that, right?
Good,
So we definitely want to honor that, brother.
Lord.
We got to honor that, brother. And so one of the reasons for joining the Passport Bros movement could be about running from one's responsibilities here at home. But what we just described, or what that man just described in that comment, is not at all escapism. To go back a few episodes ago to that to me, by me, and through me framework that I borrowed from David McEwen in detail then, this commenter is what we would call the through me man, meaning the most elevated and the most evolved of those 3 modes of being. He didn't just leave the U.S. to find himself, or he didn't leave the U.S. to find himself. He already knew who he was. So instead, he left to expand. And we want to name that, and we want to name him tonight because too much of this conversation about the Passport Bros treats every brother who leaves as if he's running. That man's not running, though. He's definitely building.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'll co-sign all
Go
the way
ahead.
on
You go
that
ahead.
for real, because when I think about it, I lived it. Me living in Mexico, me going to Panama and staying almost a month or whatever like that. It does something to you. You know, the fellas that I met down there, my brothers, you know, my man Oddly, all of them, like everybody that I've met down there, they're thriving. They've been there for years, yo. They've been there 6, 7 plus years. And that man in our comments, he's real. That's not a myth. He's not a myth. He is not the exception that people think, you know. So I want us to think about that. Jay, what were you gonna say?
I can't help but think, like anything else, there's different levels to this thing, right? And I feel like with Passport Bros, is different levels to it. And for me, this gentleman right here is at the zenith. You know what I mean? Like he is what I believe at his age, that to me is a Passport brother, emeritus. Because he has really gone above and beyond to say, look, I'm doing this for me. And I'm actually, you know, very settled and content with who I am. I'm not out here chasing nobody. I'm out here living my best life. He seems like he's a whole human. And I'm not knocking cats that decide to just, you know, just got their passport and they want to go run wild. You know, that's cool. Do your thing.
Sure.
But to me, I feel like at this age in my life, this is the definition of what a Passport brother would mean and be for me.
Gotcha.
I like that.
Got you.
For sure.
Now I wanna go to question 2.
Okay.
And in question 2, I want to read something that, you know, it really stopped me cold. You know, someone named at Ari's Web said, "I can't say I'm a passport bro. I have employees all over Africa, and I'm in the process of expanding my business and purchasing a home in Kenya. this is a conversation we should be having. Going to the continent and building something with people that look like us. Now,
Yeah.
that brother is not a passport bro. He's something bigger.
Yeah.
I think he's something bigger.
Yeah.
And I want to ask something aloud in this conversation that is never
That's
asked.
good.
Why is Passport Bros conversation always pointing towards Southeast Asia and in Latin America and in Central America and almost never to the continent? You know what I'm saying? Like, why is that? I want y'all just to think about that while we go through this, okay? And then a young brother named Isaiah Hayward for Equality, he dropped this. He said, I'm a young brother, 23.
Yeah.
On the exit from the U.S., going to Southeast Asia to set my roots. Now, I've already been to Vietnam and I've loved it so much that I'm learning the language, looking to be a global citizen, enjoying the beach life, you know, be part of the music scene and do some business connecting in the East and the West. That brother's 23, y'all.
That's impressive.
He's 23. He's 23.
23.
He's 23.
Yeah.
But think about it like this. He's 23 and he pulled up to our 40 and 50-year-old conversation. Now that's what's up. He's already doing it.
Man. That is a
He's
wise
already
young
doing
man.
it.
That's big us. That's big us. It makes me wonder if he pulled up because we used the term passport bros and he wanted to see if he falls in the definition of it, or if he wanted to see what the hype in the conversation was all about, or just to be like, hey, I'm a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, that's to your point here, that's the question right here on the table. 23-year-old, is that making moves or making mistakes? And does the 40-year-old man who starts now, he has something, does he have something that the 23-year-old doesn't?
Man.
Like resources, like clarity, and no regrets? I mean, that's the real question.
I got to say one thing.
Go for it.
To me, these first few examples that have been given, I feel as though they were the 3-year-old brother. And what I mean by that is both examples show a more secure, seasoned, whole man. Somebody that has probably traveled to many different places, developed a formula, developed skills where they can travel abroad and build a foundation. That requires, this, Quest. You can't just like roll up on those spot, hang out for a little while. Then the next thing you know, you just got a whole infrastructure. You got a whole team of people that work for you across different countries. That's some skill, bruh.
Yeah.
I understand that also requires some trial and error. So that's why I'm like, I believe that these older cats that are sharing that, hey, I'm 275K in, I'm all these different places. They were that 23-year-old dude punching their passport, trying to figure out, where do I want to go? Where do I want to lay my groundwork in? Where do I want to set my roots in?
Yeah.
To me, I feel like I see the connections there. So I'm like, big ups to you, 23-year-old bruh. Because in 23 more years, you're going to be a monster. Like a true definition of a global Black citizen, a Black male citizen. To me, I believe that what he can evolve to if he chooses to. Those are my two cents.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And getting back to Quest's question, because it's talking about that 23-year-old, the question from the comments was more about like, is that cat making a mistake at 23 to do this, to make that kind of move? And I would say like, it's hard to call that young man's intentional move a mistake. But at the same time, I would say that there definitely is still a very clear difference and distinction between him and a brother who moves abroad in their 40s or 50s, right? Like that 23-year-old, when you think about him moving abroad, he's actually still building his identity abroad, right? You think about you at 23 versus you now. There's so many things that I know at 54 that I didn't at 23. This young man is obviously well beyond where I think I was at that age. But at the same time, at 23, there's still so many elements of who you are that you just don't know yet. So I would say he's moving abroad. He's still building his identity at that time. While the brother who does is at 40s or in his 50s, that person's actually building his legacy abroad. So it's the same geography. They can be in the same place, same geography, but the stakes are very different. This really important conversation, I believe, needs to have both sides of that.
Yeah, totally understand that.
I do have to interject one more thing. How do you define a mistake?
Well, I mean, I think that's
Who can
subjective.
own it is subjective, but I
That's
also go
Yeah.
subjective.
ahead.
That's subjective. That's all I'm saying. It's subjective.
Yeah. I guess it depends
Yeah.
on what his goal is in going, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I would
And
say
if
that
he's got
too.
goals and he accomplishes his goals, then you can't say it's a mistake no matter how it looks. Like, we don't really get to judge what it is that he's going to do. Like, that's on him to do and to decide for himself. The interesting thing is, as you were asking that question of us, like, how do you define what a mistake could be? The thing that I found interesting about it is, again, at 54, I could have come up with some things at 23, even if I were evolved enough to be able to do what this cat is saying that he's doing at 23. I could set my goals and do whatever and say I failed at that. I at 23 might think that's a mistake. I at 54 understand that those mistakes needed to happen. So again, in that sense, I don't even look at that as a mistake. It's just a learning part of the learning process for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel that. There was something I was listening to earlier. It was a morning meditation or devotion, and it was something that stuck with me. And it says something to the effect of, allow me to not look at it as a mistake, but can you reveal to me what I misunderstood?
I like that. I like that. I like
Can
that.
you reveal to me what I misunderstood and look at things a little bit differently, not looking at them as a mistake because that's such a small frequency. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
Yeah.
it. So I don't know. I'm not trying to take away from the conversation. It was just something that stuck with me. But I couldn't help but also think about how we talk about in previous episodes and moving into another question on how as Black men we're tired,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about in the previous episodes
Yeah.
this whole Black fatigue epidemic that I
Mm.
believe is really starting to show its um oh man, it's just really starting to show itself in so many ways that I believe in the news we're starting to hear a lot of issues happening with Black men and trauma and taking it
Mm-hmm.
out on women and having a lot of mental health issues. I think there's something going on with this whole
Yeah.
Black fatigue epidemic that requires uh more conversation. But I also want to talk about, like I understand some of the comments that have come back is just like we're tired.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we're tired on all levels. And I think honestly, when we're tired physically, spiritually, mentally, it impacts how we it impacts how we interact relationally. It
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
impacts how we receive our Black women, how we treat them, all these things. And I think when all those things are in the pressure cooker called the United States, we're like, we just want to bounce. Like, I just want to break away from this so that I can get an opportunity to decompress because I'm constantly feeling like I'm under so much pressure.
Yeah.
And so I could feel that. So that felt really, really near and dear to me. So I can't help but get very sympathetic and empathetic to Black male when they tell me that they're just tired.
Yeah.
And we want everybody that feels like they're supposed to be superhuman all the time. It's okay to be tired. You need your rest. Like everybody does, so why should yours be any different? And it's your nervous system. It's telling you something, and I want to make sure that we're not just ignoring it because as Black men, we're supposed to. We don't have to.
Yeah.
And so wanting to breathe is not a weakness. We talked about this again. What are you doing to take care of yourself? Are you tired of just living under the constraints that you have? Or are you tired of feeling as though you can't change them?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why I think it's important to really have that conversation to really understand where you're at in your tiredness.
Yeah.
And before you decide to just go abroad and start punching your passport, have you had that conversation with yourself? What are you doing about it to make sure that you're not just going abroad and you're still tired?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
if anything,
Mm-hmm.
every time I travel, especially when I travel abroad, I'm more tired when I come back than I was before I left. So it's like for real.
Yeah, that I can feel you on that, but I gotta be real about it. When I was in Mexico, I went because of the simple fact that I felt like there was some mental burnout and there was some other areas that I was just, you know, a little bit, burnt out, and I needed to breathe. I
Mm.
needed
Yep.
to
Yeah.
to breathe. There was a lot going on during that point in time. My aunt had just recently passed away, and in that
Mhm.
same year, I was laid off from, arguably one of the best jobs that I had ever had in my
Mm.
life.
Yeah.
You know
Mm.
what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So that company
Mhm.
did well by me, even when I left, they did well by me. But it was just the fact that at that point in time, I just needed to breathe. I just wanted to
Mhm.
breathe. I didn't have
Yeah.
a 5 or 10 year plan. I was going
Mm.
down at that point in time. I wasn't even going to Mexico. At that point in time, I had went to Panama. My
Mhm.
partner at the time she must have saw it in my face.
Huh.
And she was like,
Mhm.
you know what, let's go. And that's pretty much what we did. We
Wow.
got up. She said,
Mhm.
let's go. Didn't even tell me where I was going and where we were going. I got
Mm.
to the airport and pretty much I saw we was going to Panama and we was there for we was there for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And at that point in
Wow.
time, I was like, this is kind of nice. This traveling like this, I could live here in Panama forever if I wanted to.
That's
And
cool.
it's crazy because I come back, I'm having that thought about that, and then turn around and she gets laid off. And she
Mm.
gets laid off, and I'm like, you
Mm.
know what? I'm actually gonna do almost the same thing that she did here to me, but I'm gonna take her somewhere else, and that somewhere else having the big playa. And got down there, and let me tell y'all, got down there and pretty much was like, I can live here.
Mm.
I was
Yeah.
so at
Mhm.
peace. I felt
That's
like a
awesome.
whole weight had lifted up off of me because
Mm.
I had started a journey with another company, and that journey wasn't going well. And so
Mm.
being able
Yeah.
to even understand that she was going through that, I was going through something at that point in time too. And I
Right.
was saying to myself, this is what we needed. I needed that too. And so
Yeah.
I needed that minute. It was something of a
Yeah.
getaway, but it was a beginning to something even better.
Yeah. I like
That's
that.
so
I like that a
good.
lot. Wow. Thanks for
Oh
sharing that
my
testimony
god.
too. That's real
Yeah.
powerful. And that
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
leads us pretty seamlessly into the last comment that we're going to talk about here. This is about like broken brothers, right? And whether or not they're given that passport bros moving of bad names. Someone named at Big Brother in Life 1654 said, quote, most of the so-called passport bros I encountered abroad are still broken from within and haven't healed. They haven't done the self-help or the development. And then another brother said, people should heal in their home countries before traveling to another. That person added, I've met plenty of broken people in their countries that should not have left, in other countries that should not have left. So I guess my response to that, like, I really want us to be careful here. And it's something that I named back in the first episode of this part one. I said there are primarily two different camps of men who leave this country, black men especially who leave this country. The to me man is what we would call reactive. And indeed, that person is most likely running from something. And he's waiting and he's hoping for a new country to do what a new job couldn't do, what a new woman or a new partner couldn't do, what a new neighborhood, new city, a new state in the U.S. couldn't do. And that's to give him peace. And peace is something that you mentioned there, Quest. And
Yeah.
here's what the
Yeah.
data actually says about that and what our own comment section cosigns and validates. You give that to me running man 6 months in paradise, and he'll very likely wind up being miserable anyway, because unbeknownst to him, he packed the one thing that he actually was trying to escape, and that's himself.
Say it again.
Just talking about that running man, right? Like that to
The
me,
running man.
everything is happening to me. I need to get away from this. The running man, no matter where he
Yeah.
goes, he's taking himself with him, right? So just sort of saying he didn't realize he was doing that, but he was packing the thing that he was actually trying to escape, and that's who he is. That's himself.
I got you. I got you. I got
Mm.
you. Man, that's good. You only can run for so long. But
Hmm.
I can't help but think about what you've mentioned, what Quest has mentioned, and this whole definition of passport bros. Us having this second episode and talking about the layers of it, now I'm really starting to question what's the right definition.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
is there even one real definition of what a passport brother is? I think it really comes down to what's inside here and also recognizing accountability.
Mm.
What are you holding
Yeah.
yourself accountable to? Who are you holding yourself accountable to? And more importantly, is it you?
Mm.
I think oftentimes we run from ourselves because we don't want to hold ourselves accountable for the inner work that's required to really enjoy being abroad. I think there is a time that's required to go abroad and travel so that you can rest and decompress. I think if you have desires to live abroad for extended periods of time, I think it requires you to do some work to make sure that you're a whole person while you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because we run so much from ourselves, I just would hate that we're doing that so that we can continue to run.
Yeah, no doubt. That
Um,
accountability piece is
you
real.
know,
And that's
man.
wild, that accountability piece, right? Because the question, well, what's interesting about it too, and we're seeing this more and more, that accountability question doesn't just apply to the brothers. Because while we're having this whole debate about why black men are leaving, guess what? She was packing her bags too. And very few, if any,
Mm.
are talking about this in a really public way. With any real kind of honesty. So that's a place that I think I want us to go. So anyway, after we read all your comments, a clear pattern emerged for us. Almost every single question that you all ask circles back to one thing, and it is accountability. And the one question about accountability that this entire conversation, not just our show, but every podcast that is having this debate
Yeah.
and keeps avoiding is about her. So after Questy's going to lead us off, we're going to drop some more data about black men as passport bros. After that, we're going to get into what this means for black women who are actually doing the same.
Yeah, I think, I love talking about our women. I definitely do. But before we go to her side, I just want to make a couple of comments here for the brothers because I want to give y'all a little bit more of the data because the receipts just got bigger since the last time we talked about this. Y'all remember when I was going through them receipts the first time? I'm going to give you a little bit more now so you can understand where we at and where we going. Now,
There we
listen,
go.
on average, black men earn at least 20% less than their white counterparts. And even when the education and experience is equal. So black households in the middle income quintile hold less than 1/3 of the wealth of white households in the same income bracket. That's crazy. Now,
That's crazy.
education alone doesn't close that gap. So I want you to really, really think about that. We have educated brothers, educated sisters, and when it comes down to it, it still doesn't close that gap. There's more than 655,000 black Americans currently living outside of these United States of
Wow.
America.
That's a decent
So
sized
that is,
city of people right
I
there,
mean,
right?
come on,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on, come
Yeah.
on. That's a good sized city. You know what?
Yeah.
That's more than the population of all of Washington with black folks. There's only 348,000 black people here in the state of Washington. So you just think about that. There's almost double that living abroad right now. And the
That's
United
interesting.
States experienced negative net migration in 2025 because of that. There are more people leaving than are arriving. I want everyone to know
Yeah.
that. For the
Yeah.
first time
That's
in
real.
90 years, there are
Woo.
more people living
That's
than
real.
arriving. And I'm going to tell you again, I spent my time there. I continue to go back. People are looking at me all the time like, why you keep going back to that same space? Because I can live there.
Yeah.
Because right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
if you say, hey, Quest, you know what? You can work there. I'm about to leave. I'm
Yeah.
about to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, there was no burnout for me. I got friends that are there right now, 7+ years.
Wow.
Brothers in our comments right now, living in Bali, living all over. It's not the honeymoon phase. I'm telling you that.
Yeah.
That was a man who did the work before he left. So I just want to make that clear. I just want to make that clear.
Mhm.
That's good. That's good. And I
That's
guess,
what's up.
Quest,
That's
as
what's
always,
up.
when we think about the data, like there's absolutely no doubt that the data is real, right? There's also no doubt that the
Yeah.
dignity argument is real. But I also want to go back to something that we named that last time in that first episode, because the man who leaves is obviously not always the same type of man. Okay. So that means, like,
Yeah.
again, those three types. The
Mm.
to me man is reactive. The by me man went with his eyes open. But the through me man went because it was a line, not just because it was because it was an escape, right? And here's why
Yeah.
I would say that really matters for us, for black men in their 40s and 50s, 50 plus specifically. According to a 2023 CDC report on national mortality data, the average black man in the United States of America has a life expectancy of, drumroll please, 67.66 years, while our white counterparts, it's 74.79. Okay. So that gap between us is
Wow.
7+ years. That's 7+ years. So
Wow.
brothers out there, if you're 47 right now, the data
Wow.
says you got 2 decades left. I just turned 54 in April.
Wow.
So I'm like a shade under 14 years from that 67.66 mark. So I guess in a certain sense, the question concerning passport bros, and it's not really about where you spend those years. The bigger question is about who you
Yeah.
are when you're spending those years wherever it is that you're
Yeah.
going to be. And to that end,
Yeah.
the type of man
Yeah.
who leaves with intention, that man should have everybody's blessing and full respect and be praised. That man, or versus the man who's running, that to me man, the version of him he's running from, packed his own bag, like we said before, and it's on the plane with him. And eventually, no matter where he is in the world, he's going to have to face himself.
Yeah, you know, CJ,
Mm.
I really agree
Mm.
with what you're saying here. I really agree with that framework. But let me add something to it as well. You know, like for some of the brothers, leaving was the thing that let them start that internal work. Now, you know me, I've
Right.
always said, even
Mhm.
on this show, that I feel like you need to do that work first. You need to have that foundation. You need to at least know who you are before you decide that you even want to get up to go somewhere. But sometimes there are individuals that are sound enough to be able to make that decision to leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go into an
Yeah.
environment where they are actively, healing,
Mm.
actively attacking themselves in a way in which they can figure themselves out. Sometimes you need that space
That
to
makes
breathe before
sense.
you can do all of that work. And that's not
That
Yeah.
really
makes
running.
sense.
That's just like triage. When you think about it, it's more like
Yeah. That's
triage.
fair. That's fair.
I
That's
think
definitely
that's a
fair. Oh, go
great
ahead.
yeah, no, I think that's a great comment. I think that's a great comment. We talk about everybody that I've even in the comments, we talk about when you go abroad, there's this common word theme is called peace.
Mm. Mm.
And I think it's a whole lot easier to work on healing when
Mm-hmm.
you're in an environment where you feel safe and there's peace. And at the end of the day, I
Yeah.
think that's one of Black men's highest values is
Mm.
I want peace.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
gonna
And
do
that
anything
shouldn't be discounted.
possible. That should not be discounted. And now it makes me think about we run? I know I
Mm.
do.
Mm.
I run when I'm not in peace.
Mm. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's fair.
Because I'm constantly looking for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that brings a whole nother. My mind is going in a different direction. I'm not trying to take us off the rails, but that's what made me think about this whole peace element that's so
No, that's all
important
right.
in the healing process.
There's no
Um,
doubt.
I think these are the conversations and these are the things that we don't see on social media too
Mm-hmm.
much. We just see the amplification of brothers going over there and they wilding out. And
Right.
that's what people believe passport brothers are all about. And
Yeah.
hopefully this just gives you a different twist on it at this age.
Mhm.
I hear you.
And
I hear
that's
you.
and all of that, I'd say all of that, that's fair and that's definitely valid. Like, I can't argue with that at all. I guess what I would say is there's also, though, to me, that's all contingent on your leaving being an intentional step one. Okay. If
Right.
so, then for
Right,
me, I
right,
look at that,
right,
I'm like,
right.
that's for real legitimate. So I guess what I'm challenging is when brothers treat step one as if it's the whole journey.
The
And
whole
that's not the
journey. I
point.
hear
You know
you.
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mm.
Definitely.
Man, I'm over here. We got to come back to some of these topics because I think they require some more breathing room. But I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
it's also something to start the debate about, well, what about her?
Come on, yeah.